a sense of wonder is where a lot of my ideas come from. I'm not that artist that can sit by themselves and then like create a body of work. Like it's all through socialness, like through conversation. Like I'll be chatting with someone and like I'll be like, wait, what if this was a thing? And someone else would be like, whoa, wait.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Breaking Fast with Saint Sparklebear. I am Saint Sparklebear, and thank you so much for joining me at my table today. Today we're sharing a meal with multimedia artist and maker Carly Newman. Pronouns she, her, as she says for now. Carly and I share a meal of artichokes and cedar-planked salmon, paired with a classic Negroni made with amaro bitters created from artichokes. We talk about how she uses domestic fabrics like tablecloths and blankets as symbols for the tools we develop in our families and relationships to cope, protect, hide, and communicate. From a childhood filled with the memories and anxious nostalgia of what she calls emotional Judaism, Carly invites us to negotiate with our pasts, question our memories, and be artfully present in the now and in community with one another. Pull up a chair and grab a plate. It's time to break fast with Saint Sparklebear. In my conversation with Carly today, I mentioned the theologian and philosopher Martin Buber and his book I and Thou. And I wanted to read you one of the most lively passages from the book. And I want you to just keep the passage in mind as you listen to our conversation today. Here it is, from I and Thou by Martin Buber. I contemplate a tree. I can accept it as a picture, a rigid pillar in a flood of light or splashes of green traversed by the gentleness of the blue-silver ground. I can feel it as movement, the flowing veins around the sturdy, striving core, the sucking of the roots, the breathing of the leaves, the infinite commerce with earth and air, and the growing itself in its darkness. I can assign it to a species and observe it as an instance, with an eye to its construction and its way of life. I can overcome its uniqueness and form so rigorously that I recognize it only as an expression of natural law, those laws according to which a constant opposition of forces is continually adjusted, or those laws according to which the elements mix and separate. I can dissolve it into a number, into a pure relation between numbers, and eternalize it. Throughout all this, the tree remains my object, and has its place and its time span, its kind and condition. But it can also happen, if will and grace are joined, that as I contemplate that tree, I am drawn into relation, and the tree ceases to be an it. The power of exclusiveness has seized me. This does not require me to forego any of the modes of contemplation. There is nothing that I must not see in order to see, and there is no knowledge that I must forget. Rather is everything, picture and movement, species and instance, law and number, included and inseparably fused. Whatever belongs to the tree is included. Its form and its mechanics, its color and its chemistry, its conversation with the elements and conversation with the stars. All this in its entirety. The tree is no impression, no play of my imagination, no aspect of a mood. It confronts me bodily and has to deal with me as I must deal with it, only differently. One should not try to dilute the meaning of the relation. Relation is reciprocity. Hello, Carly Newman.
Hello, Aiden.
Hello. It is such a pleasure to be talking to you. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I very much appreciate it.
It's my honor.
It's my honor. You are a totally amazing artist who blows my mind all the time. and we're meeting today and eating artichokes. Why are we eating artichokes today?
Yeah, artichokes was probably one of my favorite foods as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I liked the aspect of you have to kind of like work for the bite, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Made eating a little more exciting.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So who made you artichokes as a kid?
Oh, my mom's friend Anne.
Yeah.
It was the first time I ever had stuffed artichokes, and it blew my mind.
Yeah. What were they stuffed with?
Breadcrumbs, cheese, spices. Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
That sounds really, really good.
No one thought I'd take to vegetables as much as I did.
And you're like, I just want this weird, tough tree thing in my mouth.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So do you feel like, are artichokes, like, are they a metaphor for your life in any way? Like, do they carry some kind of metaphorical weight to them?
Oh, probably in many ways.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think, the play of the eating is just as important as in enjoyment as the flavor.
Oh.
It's an interactive food.
Interactive food, yeah. And it being an interactive, we were talking earlier about your art and how you're attempting, with the art that you create, you're attempting to create sentimentality within everyone, right? So what's your approach? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by the idea of sentimentality, that an object can have this kind of really like precious aura to it almost. But when you think about it, because it has nothing to do necessarily with how the object looks, it's a familiarity. But when you think about it, the object itself, while it feels like it is imbued with sentimentality, that sentimentality is held by the individual, projected onto the object. Okay. And that's kind of a like unconscious, subconscious thing. Okay,
yeah. So you don't necessarily have to like put effort into assigning symbol to the work that you create. The person who's looking at it is assigning their own symbol.
I have to trick them into coming up with the same symbol and sentimentality. I have to like invoke the feeling of sentimentality.
Yeah.
But still make it connected to with the like motive or action I want the piece to do.
Okay. I know we know each other very well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like we've known each other. How long have we known each other?
Like 5 years?
5?
Maybe longer?
Possibly about 5 years. Probably 6 years. And then we started making art together. Mm-hmm. We did a film. Uh-huh. Yeah, Kevin McJohnson.
Hi, my name is Kevin McJohnson, and I paint feelings.
That was fun.
And my masterpiece.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too, Carly. So how did you become an artist? Where did that come from? And how is it related to like what you were experiencing in childhood?
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is I think many artists share this story, but I was an artist because I wasn't good at the other things.
Yeah. I've heard that be true. Mm-hmm. I heard that be true, and I think you said in the past that you also like had a learning disability.
Yeah, super dyslexic.
Fun.
ADD. So school wasn't the greatest. I put all of my self-esteem eggs in a single basket, which was arts and crafts.
And you put the right eggs in the right basket.
Although, ironically, I left high school wanting to go into science. I wanted to go to biochem and pharmacology. And when I went to college, they were not as kind dealing with my learning disabilities.
Oh my gosh.
And so I kind of fell back on art.
Oh, wow. So why were you thinking about going for biochem?
Yeah, I mean, one, I was actually surprisingly really good at it.
Awesome. I can believe that.
Yeah, I love science. I like learning how things work.
Yeah, you're kind of polymathic.
Yeah, and I think science, especially like biochem, is very visual.
Yeah, for sure.
You can visualize the way different chemicals bond together. It's, Yeah, and it seemed like a helpful profession, or helpful field to get into.
Indeed. What do people with biochem degrees do?
Well, I wanted to go into pharmacology, which was inventing medicine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. How did you get interested in that?
Yeah, I took a class senior year of high school called Medicinal Chemistry. And that was what that class was.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was the best. I was, for I think most of my like school life, I was kind of put into the like slow learner classes.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, one of the first like everyone all together classes, and I ended up being one of the top of the classes, and I would stay after class for like an extra 20 minutes or however long the teacher had to go more in depth into things. And I was like, well, wait, I got this. Like, maybe I wasn't, stupid this whole time.
You were not.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Definitely not. Yeah. So artichokes, let's go back to artichokes and like back to like eating them as a kid. So you said your grandma or your aunt, which was
my mom's friend. My mom's friend from college. Yeah,
okay,
who had a kid who was my age. Closest thing I have to like a sister.
Oh yeah. So it's like kind of like a cousin sister sort of bond. That's cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like tell me about family meals. Like what was the importance like of family meals when you were a kid of coming together at the table?
Yeah. So I am the only child of 2 psychologists.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So it was, and they had me in their 40s.
Okay.
So it was extremely important to them to do everything correct as parents.
Of
course. They read all the books. Like as therapists, they know it's always the parents' fault. The parents always like fuck up their kids. Can I swear?
You can swear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please. It's always the parents' fault. So they were hyper aware throughout my entire childhood of all the ways they could fuck me up, and were very cautious and anxious.
Wow.
So dinner had a certain anxious ritual to it, maybe.
Anxious ritual.
Of like, we've read the papers that sitting down for dinner is the right thing to do. This
of course.
is, what helps our child's development.
Yeah.
So it had a kind of like unnegotiable, mandatory thing.
Yeah.
But they were still, and it was cool too. I could hear, like, listen to, dinner table conversation about work. And it was, from early on introduced to like psychological terms and theory and stuff, which was interesting.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, they were good with confidentiality if anyone's listening and worried. I did not know.
Good.
Any specific.
No names.
No names. I think dinner time represented a level of anxiety and me being watched, I guess.
Huh. Wow. Anxiety and you being watched. Yeah. That's very Foucaultian. That's a lot of pressure on a kid for when you have to eat food.
And I had a medication that I took as a kid that made me not want to eat as a side effect. And so it had this extra pressure of like, come on, like at some point I was given a milkshake with every meal because maybe I would at least, eat that. Yeah. So the artichoke, I think, was one of those interesting discoveries of like, of all things, she's eating and enjoying a vegetable. And I think the like activeness of it is what got me to want to keep eating it. For sure.
There was a participation to it. Yeah. It wasn't just like a static thing on a plate. You were actually involved in taking it apart and ripping it open, and that's really cool. Huh.
Yeah, a moment of relief maybe for everyone.
Yeah. So your parents had anxiety about being parents, but you were also raised Jewish. Were you like religiously Jewish or just like secular?
Secular, culturally Jewish.
Okay.
Emotionally Jewish.
That's a real thing. Yeah, for sure. What is it like to be emotionally Jewish?
Yeah. I mean, I think the core of cultural Judaism is you question everything. Yeah. There's, like 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Yep. So that...
It's one of my favorite things about Jews.
Yeah, me too.
I know.
But there was always room for conversation. Yeah. There was always room to, I think if I felt a punishment of mine as a kid was unfair, at least my mom was open to like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Yeah. Like tell me why it's unfair. Yeah.
Oh, wow, really?
Which I love.
Do you have like a specific instance of that you can think of?
Common punishment, I think, was they would say, okay, no TV for 2 weeks. Yeah. And then I would maybe try to pull in, well, you see, watching TV has nothing to do with the thing that I, didn't, the crime I committed.
Let the punishment fit the crime, mother.
And I'd be like, it's too abstract. How am I going to learn if it's too abstract? I mean, I'm sure I did not word it that well as a kid. But I remember at some point being like, let's find a different solution. Yeah. Like, easier to swallow punishment.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So there was like that idea, sort of like the Jewish concept of wrestling with God or fighting with God or having that argument. And that is...
Negotiation.
A negotiation, that spirituality or being in relationship with the power above you. There's no power above you. It's an equal, it's a give and take, yeah?
Well, I would say my parents, at least my dad, was parents? Like, oh no, we're the authority. Yeah. But even then, it was, I don't think it felt like, I mean, of course there were situations in which my parents were like, nope, that's what we said, that's what we're doing, we're done.
Yeah.
But I think there was often a lot of like, they would at least hear me out. They would at least be like, okay, we'll hear you. Like, we'll see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted feedback. They wanted to know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Huh.
That does feel Jewish.
Right? Do you see what I'm saying there? Like, okay, cool. I think, let's talk about the tablecloth.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the piece of art. Okay, so we've talked about everything else. We've talked about how we met. We talked about the artichokes. Okay, so the thing. Okay, so I was like looking at your Instagram today, which is soluble fiber. Is that also
soluble.fiber?
Soluble.fiber. Is that also like your Etsy? Do you have an Etsy?
My Etsy is postmodernism 69.
All right, cool. Yeah. Nice.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on my business card. It's the word nice.
Nice. Yeah. Fantastic. All right. We're gonna put that in the show notes for sure, so everybody can come and get
Amazing.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that reminds me of my other favorite piece of your art, actually. Mm-hmm. But we're gonna start with the tablecloth. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was on your Instagram today, and I was blown away because here I was preparing for this podcast where we talk about finding meaning, like being nourished, meeting at a table, having food, etc., and also the experience of spirituality and the experience of connection, right? And this tablecloth, can you describe the tablecloth to our listeners?
So it is this pink tablecloth stretched and wrapped around a stained wooden frame, kind of reminiscent of the backside of a painting. On stretcher bars.
Yeah.
Okay, so the description is, the title of the piece is called My Own Assimilation into the White Wall. Mm. So it's collected candlestick soot painted on a stretched tablecloth, dyed in Manischewitz borscht, wine, and horseradish.
Oh my goodness.
And then it's got a lamp clipped to the side of it, projecting inwards.
Yeah.
So that the other part of the description is, it's photo bleaching from the inside out until indistinguishable from the white wall behind it.
Oh, yeah.
I could try saying that again. If you
No, that was beautiful. That was like, oh my gosh, okay.
A lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. It is. So there's definitely with the Manischewitz and the borscht, there's a lot of like what you were talking about, cultural Judaism, and like the connection to family and sort of like intergenerational ideas. Is there like who had tablecloth? Like where did your interest in textiles come from? Is it your grandma? Like what happened? Where?
Yeah. No, I think, I grew up sewing and painting, but I think my interest in fiber arts and textiles came from kind of being bored with painting. Yeah. And being like, all right, like we can make colors and paints, whatever, but like, have we thought about the canvas? Yeah. Like who decided that this is what all the paintings are going to have as canvas? Yeah. And it turns out there are many different types of canvas.
So many different kinds of canvas. Yeah.
But I was like, well, I think maybe actually it originally started from me being cheap and going to the thrift store and like getting some cheap like bed sheets or curtains to paint on, and then me understanding, whoa, these have history to it. These imply meaning. Right. And then kind of shifting my entire practice around that.
Yeah, there's so much intimacy in a bed sheet. Really.
Totally.
Like so much intimacy, so much story. And are you attempting to capture all of that when you're putting something like,
I'm not greedy. No, that's absolutely the goal. I think I've always been interested in conceptual art. Yeah. To the extent where I've been pretty bored with just like painting on its own. It's like, I get it. Like, show me a photo. Why do I need to see it in person? Right. But my favorite works that have always just like get you. Yeah. It's conceptual work. In the same way that I like, like symbolic, like literature that has like heavy symbolism in. Yeah. Or movies that like do the similar thing. It's like this kind of language of, I think it also connects to my dyslexia. Okay. In the sense of, it's less about the number of words and the way the words are describing something, and more about like what's behind the words. Right, like
the feeling that's evoked by the language itself,
or that like one word can imply so much. Like a bed sheet can imply all these things around like intimacy, history. Class.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like the AIDS quilt even, and that's another representation of that. How like just people's normal everyday items that they're using, that they're laying on, that they don't think about, can become these really intense, evocative, emotional symbols.
Yeah. It's the way to squeeze in the most meaning in the least words possible.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Fuck words.
Fuck words.
Yeah. Get our meaning in otherwise. It's like people who drink their food instead of eating it. It's I don't know. Anyway.
No, I enjoy that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of nice. Like having a smoothie instead of like. Anyway.
Chewing.
Although I do enjoy the chewiness of these artichokes, I must say.
I would not enjoy a blended artichoke.
No. You buzzed. So, who are your artistic influences?
Yeah, Felix Gonzalez Torres is probably the person I want to be most like.
Okay, cool. Why?
So, I mean, where do I start?
I don't know.
One of my favorite works of theirs is a pile of candy, cellophane wrapped candy.
Yes.
Portrait of Ross.
Yes.
In which the weight of the candy represents the ideal weight of the artist's boyfriend before he, wasted away from AIDS.
Yeah.
Died.
Yeah.
And so the viewers are invited to take a piece of candy with them, enjoy the piece of candy. But even the act of enjoying the candy contributes to the loss of this human, that through consumption, even if it's a joyous celebratory consumption, there is a cost. There's so many different meanings. That's my interpretation, that I personally got to wrestle with. What does it mean in my participation as a viewer? What are the ethical implications of me consuming someone's pain?
For sure.
But there's so many other interpretations, which I think is why it's so strong.
The way that I interpreted it, or one of the meanings that I took from it, was this idea of having this fleeting sweetness. That you were taking this piece of candy, that you were enjoying the sweetness of that moment, while also remembering where the pain of that. And for me, that says a lot about love and what love really is. That love is it's so beautiful, it's so sweet, and yet it carries with it all of this weight or darkness or something. So
weight literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking about how you're draping things over frames and stuff, and there is that sense, or that the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up with the do you see what I'm saying with the Christmas tree? There's it's so wilted and it's so just emaciated.
Oh, someone told I like this. So the description of the painting is fairly funny.
Yeah.
It is. Let's see. It's called The Christmas Tree I Always Wanted.
Yeah.
It's a curtain dyed in the Christmas tree I always wanted, stiffened in wax that could have been Shabbat candles, appropriately decorated with an ornament.
Wonderful.
It was a funny piece. I made it, and it just looks so dark.
Someone
went up to me and it's like, "This is the hood of death." And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
The hood of Christmas death. That's wow.
No, this always happens. Whenever I'm trying to make a funny piece, it ends up looking so dark. And then whenever I'm like, this is a serious piece, it ends up looking really funny.
I notice that about you, is that you have this very that you play the fool a lot. You're incredibly intelligent, you're very smart, but you is that purposeful that you play the fool?
I mean, sometimes I absolutely am the fool.
Yeah, for sure.
And that I'm more than happy to admit I don't know something. I often feel like I'm very good at knowing what I don't know.
You are, actually. That's been my impression of you. Yeah.
I mean, there's power in being the fool.
There is power in being the fool, yeah.
I think being the fool makes me unassuming, it makes me approachable, which leads to a lot of interesting interactions with people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. People are, they're put at ease when you're acting foolishly.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another thing, too, is, again, due to my dyslexia, I can't, it's hard to learn on my own. I can't pick up a book and read.
Right.
And so a lot of my ability to learn new things really comes from knowing the right people who are willing to share information with me.
Which is why you are, you are a people directory. You know so many people. Is that why? You were just
absolutely.
I'm going to know as many people as possible to know as much as possible?
Well, I think I realized the greatest resource I could have were the people around me.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So I started collecting people, and then whenever someone needs to know someone else, I'm like, I got you this resource. It's important.
Yeah. I've you've come through a number of times in that regard for myself and then other people as well. So it's pretty rad. The other piece that I really love of yours are the the earrings with the
earplug earrings.
The earplug earrings. It's so glorious. There are so many, there are so many layers there for me. Like, when I saw them, it was one of those pieces that you were just talking about where, like, it's totally funny, but it's also really serious. Like, there's, like, such a serious vibe when you really kind of, like, get to thinking about, like, having to wear the earplugs. What was your... How, why, where, what? Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, it was originally invented as a punchline.
For sure.
But I also think humor is often a placeholder for coincidence, things don't match, things that make us uncomfortable. So while it was a punchline, there is, the conversations around ability, disability.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about, I've been selling these earrings on my Etsy, is observing interactions of people buying it, telling you why they want to buy it. There's a good chunk of people who buy it who are, like, on the spectrum, and they talk about, like, auditory sensitivity. Someone bought it, a bunch of them, because they rode motorcycles with their other women friends.
That is so cute.
Another group of people that tend to like the earplug earrings are archaeologists.
Archaeologists?
Yeah.
Why?
So you're in the dirt all day, and if your earplugs fall out, because you're, like, whatever noises are going on, you have to get some new earplugs. So if they have a little safety,
if they're hanging from the... That is so brilliant. Wow. Now, did you cannot foresee, like, as a creator, as a maker, you can't foresee how your items are going to be received, right? Or like, used. Yeah,
so I thought most of the people would be buying this as a gag gift,
For sure.
Like, you're, going on a trip, staying at, like, someone else's home, and you're like, here's this for hosting me. Something like that. What was interesting is when I was selling them in person, a lot of people would stop by and be like, that's genius, that's so funny, and then they would walk away and no one would buy it. The people that actually did buy it was for utility.
It was for, oh wow.
Which is not what I was expecting at all.
That is so interesting. Wow. Well, and I was thinking about it, like, particularly here in the city, I was thinking about it in terms of, like, catcalling, and noise pollution in general, but, like, I can see women, like, buying it to, like, put in their ears so they're not catcalled or they don't have to hear it. I mean, has anyone bought it for that purpose or no?
No one's told me they bought it for that purpose, but cool. I do think putting them in and out has a performative quality.
Yeah, for sure.
That is a nice
touch. Right?
Yeah.
There's like some, like, real fierce feminists happening there. Which is part of the reason why I think it's so cool. So, where do you find meaning? Like, how do you feed the inner well of creativity?
Yeah. A sense of wonder is where a lot of my ideas come from. I'm not that artist that can sit by themselves and then, like, create a body of work. Like, it's all through socialness, like, through conversation. Like, I'll be chatting with someone and, like, I'll be like, wait, what if this was a thing? And someone else would be like, whoa, wait. And then I'd be like, I gotta write it down. And then it becomes a thing later.
Yeah, for sure.
Then absolutely all my work is based in conversation originally. That's where, and I think, that feels so true to me too, is where does meaning come from? Meaning comes from people. And meaning comes from our connections and how we make them and keep them going. Right. Yeah.
Which is,
It's another way to document ourselves in a way, right? The goal of the artist in a way is to insert ourselves in history, in art history, be remembered, maybe past our death. But another way to do that is through people. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. What are you interested in exploring now? Where's your art at right now? So I'm doing some experiments around sentimentality. Yes, back to the sentimentality. Explain, like, unpack sentimentality for me. What is it? So let's see. I would say it's a sense of meaningful familiarity, maybe. I guess there's many ways to... I've never sat down to try to define it, because it's so intangible. Right, sentimentality, yeah. But I see it as something, maybe an object you've had around, maybe it's a piece of trash, but you just can't throw it out, because it means something, but also, is it a way to remember something? Right. I think it's interesting looking at people who are hoarders. The reason they hoard is because they feel like that's the easiest way to access a memory, that if they lose the item, the memory goes with it. Exactly. So I am interested in forcing sentimentality in objects. I'm doing these little experiments of carrying around different objects in my pocket every day. To see if, like, just arbitrary items, to see that if it can become more than what it is, simply, like, without me interacting with it more than just putting it in my pocket every day. It doesn't have a story attached to it or anything like that. Like, does that work, Yeah, so I'm figuring that out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's such a cool experiment. How do you bring that to other people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's hard. So I think there are some maybe like almost archetypal symbols in a way.
Yeah.
So like a tablecloth, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. A tablecloth, I think, is so... I mean, it's just redolent of so many things. There's so many things going on in a tablecloth for so many different people. We've all sat at a table. We've all had a meal. We've all eaten. So,
but it also has a huge range, right?
Exactly.
Of like maybe it represents stress of like maybe eating like family,
like you were saying at the beginning, how it was a stressful time for you to eat with your parents. Yeah.
Or maybe it's like a warm sentimentality of eating like a home cooked meal or missing something. Or maybe it's like you're remembering this like really ugly tablecloth that like your mom had in the 90s or your grandmother had, and then it got put away and you don't rediscover till later.
And like since I overthink things and bring like tons of meaning to things, when I looked at the tablecloth and the it was stained in the Manischewitz and the borscht, I really thought about like intergenerational trauma and how it's played out in our simplest everyday interactions. No,
and this piece especially is a little bit heavier than my other stuff because this isn't simply just about culture and familiarity, but it's also about losing that for the sake of whiteness. That's the photo bleaching from the inside out. It's indistinguishable from the white wall behind it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah. Whoa, dude.
Yeah.
So this is an exploration of... Is it an exploration of, like, the rediscovering of your not whiteness?
So whiteness is inherently, like, an interesting thing because it often is... My understanding of it is it's often tied to economics, social economics, right?
For sure, yeah.
And my understanding is the Jews weren't really seen as white until after the GI Bill in the 1940s. That there were laws, in Europe for a lot of history, preventing Jews from owning property.
Right.
Like, they were historically the others. The bad others.
Yeah.
And that suddenly Jews are white now.
Yeah.
And that I've grown up with knowing nothing other than, I'm white.
Yeah, right.
But there is this history that I have to kind of piece together, every Jewish holiday is like a time that we almost died, but we didn't.
Hey, we were oppressed and then we killed some people and now we're not oppressed.
Yeah.
Because God helped us. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like reconciling of I've only known privilege, but also my history is bound in oppression.
Right.
And how do I make sense of that?
Right. Yeah. How do you make sense of that balance between oppression and privilege, for sure? And I definitely have experienced that as well as an Irish Catholic. That Irish people were not seen as white either until the 1950s. And it's so interesting because even among those of us who were ascribed whiteness at a certain point in order to assimilate, that there was still that we didn't find solidarity with each other, that we were further kind of separated by whiteness itself. Yeah.
No, my grandparents who immigrated here made a conscious, or my great-grandparents made a conscious decision to not speak any Yiddish in the household, so that their kids would never know Yiddish.
That sucks.
Yeah. But that's kind of, that was a survival thing,
Yeah,
right?
for sure, definitely.
And so here I am, being like, well, should I learn Yiddish?
Right.
Should I?
And I've been like,
what am I
need to learn some Irish. Yeah. Totally. Wow. Yeah. So is it is that our kind of our generational role is to unpack the, just to say, no, we don't want whiteness, and to rediscover the parts of ourselves that are kind of a deeper or richer or whatever.
Well, so my understanding is, I say that a lot, let me say that differently.
Just give me perspective here, Carly.
So I believe there's some interesting numbers behind it saying that it's usually the fourth generation of immigrants are the first generation who's really interested in going back into the root.
Well, how about that?
Yeah. So there's, I don't remember what the other generations
do
or symbolize.
Yeah.
But it's fairly common across like different ethnicities.
Yeah.
The fourth generation is interested in going back.
And you're fourth generation, and so am I.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
Huh.
There we go.
Whoa. It's just like we're just animals, and we have predictable patterns over generations. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I don't think it's, I think the things of whiteness that I want to reject aren't, that's like a tricky thing too, because it's like, it's not on me to reject whiteness.
Yeah, no,
you know?
it's, you're not rejecting whiteness. You're saying and like, at least for me, it's been like a conscious effort to know what is whiteness, what is white privilege, what is supremacy, and what is genuinely or authentically my own culture, my own roots, my own, like, and to discover that with a richness that is not tied to my skin color or any kind of sense of supremacy.
No, and I remember, growing up being Jewish, thinking nothing of it, like, what, like, it's not culture, whatever. And then it wasn't until I went away to college in Wisconsin, where I was the first Jew some people met.
Oh my goodness!
Then I'm like, well, I guess I'm exotic, like, and I would be like, you want to, like, I'll, like, say some Hebrew, and I'd, like, say a prayer or something like that, and they'd be like, ooh, like, what was that?
Adonai, what?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'd do Passover with, like, some saltines, because there was, like, no matzah around.
Right. And
everyone would be like, whoa.
This is so mystical.
So that was like the first time that I was like, okay, I'm Jewish.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, it took being the other to appreciate it as a culture rather than a given.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And maybe that's the tying with whiteness is, if you're white, how many options do you have to be the other? You
don't. Yeah. And there's also a lot of forgetting in it. So we've been talking about like sentimentality and remembrance and like carrying on traditions like that. And whiteness just asks you to forget all of that and engage in colonialism, engage in supremacy, engage in capitalism. That is the goal, and that there's no backstory to that. There's no richness.
Going back to the Christmas tree piece.
Yes.
Let me explain that, because I think that ties in really well with this.
Cool.
I was never allowed to have a Christmas tree growing up because, and I wanted one because they seem great.
They're cool, right?
Smells good, collect ornaments.
Yep.
But at least the way my dad viewed it is, you are Jewish because you are not Christian. Like you define your Judaism by what you are not.
Okay. Which
is controversial. Not everyone does that.
No.
I've got, I gotta make peace with some of that too.
For sure. You have your own journey. It's
yeah. But understanding that, or at least thinking that there is this active, aggressive conversion happening around me all the time. Trying to take something from me. Yeah, to take your Jewishness and make you into a Jesus person. Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't think I've ever had someone personally ever try to convert me. Right. But I do remember, like, as a kid, watching Christmas movies on TV, being like, well, I guess I'm not allowed to have, this happiness, this family, because that's for Christians, like happiness for me. Yeah, like I can't discover the meaning of Christmas. Like, I'm not allowed to have that. Oh, yeah, poor little baby Carly. She deserves the meaning of Christmas. So the Christmas tree is about you. Like, tell me about that meaning making. That's happening there. Right. So having this Christmas tree, like now an adult, I can do whatever I want, but I still have this like guilt of like, but I still can't have it. Like, even if I wanted, I still can't have it. And so this piece is about like, all these things that like I wish I had but I didn't. But it's also, it gets its shape from Shabbat candles. Yeah. That I, they could have been useful. I could have been more Jewish. Yep. So it's like not an act of like, because I don't have a Christmas tree, I am more Jewish. It is like, I'm not using Shabbat candles. So it's a neither nor situation. It's just, let me feel a bunch of guilt right now. Right. Yeah. So it's all guilt without any of the tradition. That's, or just like focusing on all the bad. Yeah. But it's funny. Like, it's so when you focus on the bad that insistently, it is hilarious. Yeah, which is, I think, a lot of Jewish humor as well. I agree. Yeah, and Irish humor as well. Yeah. It could be worse. It could be worse, yeah. Who knows? It could be raining. I would like to explain a little more the tablecloth piece, because I think that one is complicated. I remember the class that I created this in. Oh, really? Was for finishing a degree kind of class. Yeah. And there was someone, I think an exchange student from or international student from like Russia or Ukraine, and was like, borscht, wine, like we have that there too. Like, I don't get it. Like, what's important about this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which I think is like really interesting. That also borscht too is different in Russia, I believe. You eat it hot.
Right.
It's eaten hot, and in Judaism, sometimes you have it cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
I thought
refreshing.
borscht was always cold.
You must have had a lot of Jewish borscht.
Apparently.
Yeah.
No Russian borscht.
Yeah. But just some differences and some similarities.
That's so interesting, because like then when you're talking about how you want to ascribe sentimentality for everyone, that's
like, to what extent can
you when there's going to be somebody in Russia who's like, what the heck is borscht? Why is this important? Yeah.
Another thing too of these things that I've chosen go into my knowledge of natural dyeing, which is using plants to impart color or pigment into fabric chemically.
Okay.
That I specifically chose foods that happen to not be light fast, meaning that they will disappear fairly quickly.
Okay.
So to further...
So it was purposeful.
To have it photo bleached from the inside out.
Yeah.
To make it photo bleached.
Oh my goodness, that's wondrous.
Which goes into my interest in chemistry.
It does, your interest in chemistry, exactly. And when we had our cocktails today, we had it with bitters in it. And what were these bitters? They were made out of artichoke, right?
Yeah, chinar.
Yeah. Okay.
That's an amaro. Yeah.
It's an amaro.
It's like a drinkable bitter for anyone who's listening and doesn't know what chinar is. Yeah.
Okay. So chinar, what's the difference between a drinkable bitter and a non-drinkable bitter?
Yeah, so bitters are like seasoning, right?
Yeah.
You throw it into a cocktail, it seasons it up.
Yeah.
Seasons it up.
Right.
And amaro, or plural is amari, is one that you can just drink straight if you want.
Oh, nice. Oh,
That's
okay.
that. So they all have similar, or they can have similar botanicals in it, which come from Western herbalism, so originally medicine.
Yeah. And so do they have medicinal uses or medicinal effects? Or
yeah, no, really? Some people, like, so the place where I got all of my herbs from mostly sells it for health things.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Some people make teas with it and drink it.
Yeah.
That scares me a little. I do believe there is a lot of like power in actual plants, like medically speaking, and
for
I'm
sure.
like, I don't want to like.
You don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with that unless I really know what I'm doing and know how to dose it.
Yeah, for sure.
So a little dash of bitters, I'm okay with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're not gonna poison yourself or anything like that.
Let's hope not.
No. So you're very much you're kind of a witch in a way. Yeah.
It's funny because I don't think I've ever believed in God or anything like that. Yeah. But like the process of like natural dyeing is like, I got a cauldron and I'm stirring it for hours.
Yeah, yeah, you are.
Yeah, and I like know about different herbs, and I am a witch in many ways accidentally.
You are a witch in many ways accidentally, and I asked you onto a spirituality podcast because like the stuff you do, how you do it, there is a certain sacredness.
Absolutely.
Like, and you have a sense of the sacred in your work. I see it. I mean, is that purposeful?
Oh, absolutely, right? That's, I think, for conceptual art, if art doesn't have, a formal quality or necessarily look a certain way,
right?
What else does it have? It's, sacredness,
right?
Concept.
Yeah.
I think that's, ties into my love of wonder in the world.
Yeah.
And, curiosity, I think.
That's, and that your sense of the sacred comes from just being in the world and living in it. Just experiencing it as fully as possible. But
also understanding the different ways in which I can affect and interact with the world too.
Yeah. And manipulate it to your own purposes. Or to
manipulate it.
Yeah. Or for your own rhetoric. Yeah. Huh.
Right, so like give me a piece of fabric and change its color.
Exactly.
My friend calls me a transmutation witch.
I love it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I can do that, like, just, go in the backyard, pull some plants, be like, all right, now this is yellow. Like
that is definitely witchcraft. It really is. No, it definitely is. Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's, it comes from a curiosity. And I'm like, how far can I go? Like,
Yeah. And the thing I really love about it, like, for me as a theology nerd, it reminds me so much of the 20th century Jewish theology that I was really moved by. Martin Buber. I don't know if you know who Martin Buber is, but he has this whole thing about like how in order to interact with the world, you can't interact like you are a you and what you're interacting with is an it. It has to be the I and thou. So like that whatever you're interacting with, you interact with it as if you were interacting with what is most sacred. So whatever you're doing. So be it if you're interacting with a person, or if you're interacting with an artichoke, or you're interacting with a tablecloth, that it's about the quality of the relationship, it's about the depth of the relationship, rather than about what the thing is that you're relating to. Mm-hmm. So, do you see that in your own work?
Yeah. No, it's really making me think about what is sacred. Like, how do you define sacredness?
I mean, yeah, right? I don't know.
That's the goal here.
That's kind of what I'm doing. Yeah.
Let's see. I think I'm more familiar with the word of preciousness. Maybe.
Preciousness. Okay, yeah, for sure.
Which is similar. Different.
No, yeah, it has the same connotation. Yeah.
I think similarly to sentimentality, it is this untangible relationship that you have with a thing or person. You know, it is.
Preciousness also seems to, like, for me, it connotates a singularity or uniqueness. Mm-hmm. You know, that if something's precious, it's rare,
and maybe also like a promise to care. You know? Like if something's precious, it implies no harm's going to happen to it.
Oh, like a covenant.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we did the C word. Okay. Carly, do you want to say anything to promote yourself before we conclude?
Hopefully, I'll have an art exhibit up by the time this airs, and you can link to it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, let's do that. All right.
You can take a look at my artwork.
Yes, please.
CarlyNewman.com.
CarlyNewman.com. And they can buy your artwork where?
Just send me an email.
Okay, send Carly an email.
If you want some earplug earrings.
But earrings, the earplug earrings, where they can get those.
My Etsy shop is Postmodernism69.
Postmodernism69. How could you forget that? It is so nice. All right. And on Instagram, you are soluble.fiber.
Yeah, which... Fun fact about artichokes, very, very high in soluble fiber. In fact, they have more soluble fiber than other vegetables.
Excellent.
Number one.
We have had so much fiber today. We're doing really well. I'm so glad I'm going to be regular after this podcast.
You're welcome.
Carly, thank you so much for spending the time to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
It has been a delight. Thank you.
Same.
Yay! All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye. Thank you for joining Carly and I at my table, and a profound thank you for listening to my very first podcast episode ever. Wowza. I am absolutely chuffed, as they say, with this first season, and I can't wait to hear what you think. I want to hear from you, all of you. The podcast is written and edited by me, Saint Sparklebear, and you can find me on the web at saintsparklebear.com or on Instagram. The theme music is by fellow Chaos Muppet and composer Gail Gallagher. The show's logo was designed by Wesley Morrison Sloat and Jam Doty. Breaking Fast with Saint Sparklebear is produced by New Faith New Media Network. Join the New Faith New Media Network on Facebook or check them out on Patreon at www.patreon.com/NFNM. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Have a great week.